Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered. I'm your host, Laura Siebold, and today we have a Leadership Rediscovered first. Not one, but two guests, and they happen to be married. Will we learn about leadership? Will we learn about love? Maybe both. Stay tuned and find out. All right. Mark Cholock and Mary Cholock, who are co-leaders of Momentous Financial Partners, have been working together for decades. At first, just friends. Over time, they became coworkers and then married couple and parents. Through a serendipitous meeting in high school, they discovered a lot in common. They both love the outdoors, both enjoy creative hobbies like painting and drawing, and both want a life of impact. After college, they ended up working together in a laboratory playing as chemists despite their biology degrees. Mary and Mark are always willing to do what a lot of people won't or can't, so they began to work second shift and quickly earned opportunities to lead people before they had any idea what leadership really meant. Throughout their 30 combined years in corporate careers, they seized opportunities to lead growing teams and new projects. Mark realized that his favorite role is as mentor and coach. Mary found a love for sharing knowledge and facilitating those experiences. Now, more than 20 years into their marriage with 3 kids ranging in age from 5 to 15 years old, they are leading themselves and a growing agency. Yes, they work together while building the life and business of their dreams. Welcome, Cholocks, to the Leadership Rediscovered podcast.
Wow.
Thanks for
Laura.
being here.
Laura should read everybody's bio.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I'm going to just listen to that beginning like every morning,
Yeah.
you know, like my morning
Here we
motivations,
are.
like
Yeah.
Play
gratitude.
it for the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It would
Yeah.
be.
They
they'd
would
be
think we
really
were the
excited
coolest.
about that.
Like we're
yeah.
kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, you are. Yeah. And so, okay, I'm so excited. And I know I could go for hours with you. Typically, we start this show by having my singular guest, never plural. So I'm very excited about this. First time. But we talk about leadership journey. And so I do want to hear, because I had the benefit of working with both of you many moons ago.
Yeah.
And you all were rock stars within your own respect in your careers. And you did have separate careers, even though we all worked in the same company. So I'd like for you to kind of talk about your individual leadership and career journeys and then how they eventually came together.
Oh, good. You want to let me go first? Okay.
Ladies first.
So this is so interesting. So I remember being a kid, right? Like you're in elementary school and you get your report card and it's like, she's a leader by example,
Yeah.
right? And so I just felt like this incredible like weight on my shoulders that like people are watching. And it kind of changed my mindset, right? Like, so I was like, oh, I mean, to probably an unhealthy level of like what the world thinks matters.
Said on my report card that I'm a leader and everyone's watching
Right.
me.
But it started making me think, right? Like
Yeah.
people who other people look to, that's a leadership role, whether you like accept it or not. So,
Yeah.
I mean, early, I remember those. But I think the first time I took a leadership role was in like high school and college tennis teams.
Oh,
I was a captain for I played 3 years in high school and 4 years in college. And I was a captain all 7 years. So that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like, you do what needs to be done in order to help your team win and to show up consistently. And so those experiences really like that hard work, the
Yes.
grind,
Yes.
the keeping people positive.
Yes.
Right? Like when emotions are down, when people are angry, when there's competition amongst the team,
Yes.
it was more about just kind of like balancing energy and balancing like, what are we trying to do here? Like, let's work hard. Let's get where we want to go. I was fortunate to have great coaches on those teams that helped
Yeah.
to like solidify my role as a leader.
Mhm.
And so then I think just going on, I really enjoyed like when I found a group that I felt like people thought that I had the capability,
Mhm.
I wanted to step forward.
Yeah.
But that was also kind of a limitation. Is
Yeah.
like I wait, and we can get into that later,
Yeah.
but like I wait till be recognized and then take a step. So my leadership was almost like kind of like, it's here if you want it.
Yes.
It wasn't something I went and took.
Yeah, you're kind of like waiting for maybe someone to tap you on the shoulder.
100%.
Or, hey, we have an opportunity. And then you're like, I'm the gal for the job. I'll
Yeah.
step right in.
Yeah, for sure.
Got it.
Sure.
Wow. And so fast forward. So did you major in biology?
Yeah.
Or okay. And then outside of graduate degree,
Yes,
from a corporate
so-
perspective, talk us through a little bit what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so I went to work at the University of Pittsburgh Starzl Transplant Institute right out of
Oh,
college.
wow.
So I was doing transplant surgery research, super intense, lots of long hours. But my goal actually was to get my MBA at the Katz Business School while I was there.
Yeah.
Well, turns out when you're the level 1 research tech in this very sought after laboratory,
Mhm.
you spend all your time on call. So I was working in transplant surgery. So that meant when a light flight helicopter would fly over my head on my walk home,
Oh, no.
I was like, okay,
Turn
well,
around.
we're going back.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, I don't think I'm going to, I started the process to go to the business school because I really thought I'd go into hospital health administration after college.
Yeah.
And I was like, how am I going to compete with these people? They are doing this full time, and I am literally running up and down the bioscience hill to get back and forth to the lab. This is not, this isn't going to work. So
Yeah.
I had to make a rediscovery. At that time, Mark was a friend.
Well, actually, I remember one of our first dates. We were in a movie. I can't remember what movie it was,
This is true.
but Mary got paged at the time.
Oh, yeah,
right?
pagers.
With the little pager.
Sure did.
And she's like, I gotta go. I'm like, really? I'm
And
like,
I
that
had worked,
pancreas can wait. This person.
We're in the middle of
right?
a movie.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and so that was an indicator too to me that
Yeah.
I wanted a life that was a little bit different than that kind of a rat race. And so I was like, I need to reassess. He had a job at that time, and he said to me, you should apply here. The pay's great, and I think you'll learn a lot. Maybe it won't be where we stay forever or where you stay
Yeah.
forever, but check it out. So when I got into the corporate world, I swore I would be there 6 months. I said, you know what? I worked that other job for 6 months.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't look great on your resume. It's a new graduate
I
to
gotta hang in there a little
jump
bit
some
longer.
jobs.
Yeah.
Let me work 6 months here and learn this, and then I'll see what's next. But I really had every intention of figuring out my life.
Yeah.
And I took that job and I started looking around. And I was like, wait, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Mhm.
There's a lot of opportunity here. And so, do I want to work in the lab forever? Definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm a creative person, so
Yeah,
that was very limiting. But quickly,
Yes.
I saw an opportunity to build some training because there wasn't a system that really was growing at the pace that we needed to grow. And so I had a supportive manager who was like, sure, build a training
Yeah.
program.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, do that. So I started doing that, and I was willing to do it off shift, and
Yep.
so that opened up another avenue, right? So that I had
Mhm.
visibility with people that I didn't normally get to see. Working
Yeah.
shifts in a lab, you have very limited access to a lot of other people.
Yes.
But it gave me enough of an opportunity to be able to connect with some people that then were able to give me a role where I got to have that bigger vision, that bigger leadership. But
Very cool.
but for sure, I don't think it would have happened if I wasn't willing to do something a little bit different and wasn't willing to go out on the limb a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And while
yeah.
Mary's
Yeah.
doing this, Mark, what were you doing?
well, that's kind of where our leadership journey came together is
Yeah.
in the lab. And I saw opportunity there too because everybody wanted to move to first shift.
Okay.
So I was cool with it. We didn't have kids and, Mary was fine with it. So I just continued to lead in the lab. And as the years went by, more and more opportunity. So I started kind of moving up the corporate chain. And so it was a great opportunity,
Yeah.
and my promotion times were probably half of what everyone else was too,
Hmm.
because I ran into problems. I had to solve the problems on my own
Yes.
because there weren't.
Well, you don't have, when you're on an off shift,
Exactly.
you just do not have the as many leaders walking around. You
Yeah.
don't have as much exposure. You're
Yeah.
a little bit on your own.
And
Yeah.
quite honestly, the mistakes help you grow.
yeah,
right?
That's how you learn.
Oh,
It really is.
Yeah.
I made a
I mean,
lot.
we
a
laugh at
lot
that
of
now.
mistakes
We can look back
early
and laugh.
on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you are that type of person, if you look at your mistake and you're like, okay, it was a mistake.
Yeah.
But okay, how do I fix this moving forward? How do I make myself better? It's fine,
Yeah.
and then you continue to evolve.
Yeah. And so both of you continued to grow in your careers at that same company.
Mhm.
I know, Mark, you were leading a team of folks. Mary, you got really ingrained in more of that training, which was huge. I mean, this is like a massive responsibility within the organization. And then when did the kids start coming into play here?
Such a good question.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what changed everything.
Yeah,
man.
that changed everything.
Because we were just plugging along and everything was fine. And, you know,
Yeah.
there wasn't a whole lot of multitasking going on at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we were,
Yeah. And so Mark was at that point when we had our first son, Mark was working second shift and I was on day shift doing that project we were talking about, the big learning management system. And I loved it.
Yeah.
And so we were fortunate. Our managers gave us a little bit of flexibility. So I worked from 6 a.m. to 3:30 instead of my typical 7 to 4:30. And Mark's manager allowed him to come in after we safely transitioned the child.
Which
in the
I
parking
feel
lot
like I was
many
going to say,
times.
true or false? Did you used
True.
to exchange said child in the
Yes.
parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Hey, I'm happy to report he's doing really well.
he's a very well-adjusted 15-year-old. No, yes, but that is true. Like we were able to, and I mean, there was a lot of stress associated with that,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like because we were both kind of on these career paths, and like I mean, that was really a decision we had to make, and we came to
Yeah.
that because we were handing him off in the parking lot, and that wasn't. It was what we needed to do at the time, right?
In that
And-
short
Yes.
season.
And I think
Yeah.
that at that point in my life, this is another leadership moment.
Yeah.
You know, recognition is the idea that things change, life's
Mhm.
change.
Yes.
And what the decision you make today is not set in stone.
yes.
No matter how sure you are about it,
Yep.
tomorrow is a new set of circumstances. And so what
Mhm.
the great decision you made yesterday, you have to be willing to take a look back and say, that might
Yeah.
not have been right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm grateful that I
Yes.
stayed. I got vested in my 401k.
Yeah.
I
All
got
the
a
things.
few more
Yeah.
incredible experiences.
Yes.
Mark got incredible time with our son. And I have to say, like, for any parents out there,
Yeah.
new parents,
Uh-huh.
especially of sons, I mean,
Yeah.
potty trained little boy, quick.
Yeah. All
Because-
happening. Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
was with daddy all day and they were out in the woods and they did their thing. And
Uh-huh.
when I
Yeah.
came home, I had quality time. But then it kind of got to the point that, I mean, we were pregnant with our second one.
Yeah.
And I wanted to try to balance it.
Yeah.
And
It
I
was
wasn't-
time to like kind of bring the family together
Well, yeah,
too.
because
Like we were operating
you weren't seeing each other
separately.
very much. There's no
Yeah.
way. Like if you're okay, so wait a second. You were first shift.
Yep.
He
Yeah.
was second shift.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're really not seeing each other.
Yeah.
No. And I mean, we have
exchange.
always felt that like your work and your career is important because it needs to fulfill you and it needs to
Yes.
sustain your life. But at
Mhm.
the same time, like it doesn't replace your family.
Yeah.
So for us, we were like, okay, we got to make a decision.
yeah.
So that decision ended up being after a lot of, process that I would stay home
Yeah.
and that he would keep working.
Yeah.
And so that was good for, I don't know, 18 months till I went crazy.
Right, because let me reference what I said earlier about both of you being rock stars in your career. And so, yeah, in the creative.
Yeah.
I might argue she was crazier before,
Right?
but we'll go with that.
Yeah.
18 months and
Yeah.
she was
No,
crazy.
but I mean, but that's just exactly it.
Right,
Like
yeah.
you do what's right in the moment and the best steps for you
Yeah.
and what you want for your future. But yeah, so
Yeah.
anyway, so back to your story. What were we talking about? You were,
Yeah. So you.
we changed.
Yeah,
Oh, yes. So then
yeah.
I stayed home
Yeah.
and he was working full time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then eventually you came back together because now you are working together. So I want to dive.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions about all that because I think it's so fascinating. I hear people all the time saying, "Oh, I could never. Oh, never work with my spouse or my partner or what significant other." In which I understand. I'm like, haha, but then I think about, well, wait a second. That's, you're in a committed relationship with this person. That's a partnership. And then working together in a business is a partnership too. So why are you okay with the one and so not okay with the other,
Yeah.
which is interesting to me. So I just, I want to kind of peel that back and dive pretty deep, if you don't mind, of just how that decision came to be, where you decided,
That's
okay, we
kind
are
of a
going to
funny
work
story
together.
how that
yeah.
decision came to be.
Yeah.
I can
Let's hear
tell
it.
that
Yeah,
one.
that's a good one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so after my corporate career came to an end and I moved to another company for about a year and it was kind of the same thing. And I wanted change. I wanted something different.
Yeah.
And for, my gosh, 20 years of my corporate career, I always said, man, I want to build a business because I have that creative side.
Yeah.
And I never really found the right opportunity. And well, finally, I came across this opportunity with where we're at now. And I started into it. And Mary had decided, she's like, hey, for short term, I want to just, find a job to just kind of pay some bills,
Yeah.
and keep the household rolling
Yeah.
while we build this business. And we were redoing our basement at the time. And I remember it was probably 2:00 in the morning. I got up to let the dog out, and we took the interior doors off the basement, and I was painting them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh gosh, the doors are dry. I'm going to just put another coat on and go back to bed, bring the dog in and go back to bed. That's
totally
how I
normal.
think. Right. That's exactly
I'm the crazy
how I
one.
think.
Yeah, it's a really normal thing to do at 2
But I'm
in the
like-
morning. Yeah, paint a door while
So
I'm up.
I'm over there with a roller and a brush in my hand, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is stupid. She's going to go and she's going to get whatever kind of job in it, and that's great.
Yeah.
But what if Mary stepped in and helped me to build this thing?
Yeah.
And
Instead of
yeah,
going to earn money somewhere else while you build the
let's
business.
build it and build it twice as fast.
Yeah.
It was my thought. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I wanted to wake her up, and I'm like, no, she's probably going to think I'm like super crazy, right? Maybe I went crazy at this point.
Perhaps. But it worked out. That's a good ending.
Yeah, no, it did. So the next morning, I said to her, I'm like, hey, and she had already interviewed with a couple of places, and she had kind of a couple of jobs that we were waiting to hear back.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, if you get offered, no, I have a better idea. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, you're going to help me build this business.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have the training, and I love the mentorship. It is just like a perfect blend of what she loves to do and what I love to do. And it puts the business together. So she's like, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And luckily she decided she wanted to work with me.
Well, and I need to emphasize for a moment here, though. This is like a massive career pivot that both of you made, right? Okay, because you are trained as scientists,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
and had
100%.
very corporate careers as scientists. And then the work that you're doing now is
Financial services.
Services. So, you basically, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell me if I'm telling your story incorrectly.
Sure.
But I mean, you basically, walked away from a corporate, on paper, probably the job that everyone's like, oh, I'd love to have that job someday, right?
My family looked at me like, what are you doing?
Walked
you
away
are
from
absolutely
that.
crazy.
Yeah. And said, I'm
Maybe.
going to start my own business doing something completely different,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And at this point, 3 kids, right?
3 kids.
'Cause Ellie
3 kids.
was
Yeah.
At that point.
Oh,
yeah.
and did I mention this happened in May of 2020?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 Some other
I
things
forgot
may
that
have been going on
detail.
at May of
Minor
2022.
detail.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's like a massive, when you think about, to me, there's a lot of people that'd be afraid to make that decision, and they would associate a lot of risk with that. I know you're in the business of risk anyway, but so number one, moving into something like that, people might say, whew, that's really risky. Number two, both of us in on the same thing. Some, folks might be like, strike 2, that's real risky. Like, what's your backup plan? Wait a second. If you're both working on the same business and it fails, what are you going to do? You have 3 kids. I'd love to hear, the people who probably did say you were crazy and the commentary that you got and how you pushed past that, because obviously you made it happen.
Well, there's a couple points. Number one is you have to consider who's giving you that feedback. Do I want that person's life? No.
Yeah.
So I only accepted the feedback from people who were in a position where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And at that time, the people who were critical of my decision were not people that I hadn't already surpassed in success, or success on paper, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that wasn't really a concern.
Yeah.
Mark has an incredible way of capturing gains, looking at gains, not gaps. Okay, so I get a little teary when I talk about stuff. So
I love it.
I'm sorry, but
I might get teary watching you. But yeah.
sorry. And it's not sadness at all. It's like actual excitement. But the big piece of that is, like he said, if the worst thing happens, like what is the worst? So he made me play that out. Like, what's the worst?
Case scenario.
Worst case scenario. Like, are we gonna go down and let our house be locked? No. Like, there are we have
You're
skills.
employable. Yeah.
And while we're building this business, we're only building more skills.
Yes.
Like, we're not sitting
Yeah.
around like hoping that we're going to win the lottery.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are
You're
working
actively
probably
doing things.
harder.
Yes.
We're probably working
We're
harder.
not hoping,
No.
like
Yeah.
rolling the
Let's just
dice and
try
I
to
hope
see.
this works. No,
Yeah.
that everything is
all
calculated.
in.
There's work.
Yes.
Yeah.
This isn't just, we're going to kind of show up when we think we want to show up. Or, hey, I'm going to check out for 3 weeks because I want to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's very calculated
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
And
very
I mean,
focused.
I am naturally probably a little more anxious about things like money and stability and things
Yeah.
like that. And I've had to like recognize that like, and just rely on the fact that like, haven't we gotten through everything?
Yes.
Do you know, like,
Yes.
haven't we made it through things that other people wouldn't have made it
Yeah.
through? Haven't we made big decisions before? Like when we decided to sell our house in Morgantown and move,
Yeah.
like people thought we were insane. And we
Mhm.
thought,
Hey,
No.
How could you leave? Why would you leave? Yeah.
yeah, like, and we were like, no, this is, this might be the first step of many,
Yeah.
but like it's a risk we want to take because where we are right now isn't getting us where we want to go. If I could have potentially, and this is crazy to think, but like we moved in 2019, August, we left
Oh
Morgantown.
my. Just the timeline of
The
all this
timeline's crazy.
hindsight is
Yeah.
like
But,
crazy.
and I say to people all the time, like I've had a lot of conversations with people about like that decision-making process. And I said, I'm really sorry for the rest of the world that COVID had to happen. I'm so grateful it happened for us because it pushed that like intentionality of like where we want our life to be.
Yeah.
It forced the timeline. Like it was
Yes.
like, if we're going to do
Now or
it,
never.
now or never.
Now or
We're
never.
home anyway all day. And what
Yeah.
better education for our 3 kids than to
Yes.
see us grinding?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
15-year-old kids don't always get it.
Right.
Like you come home from a corporate job and they
Yeah.
have money on their debit card and they're like, yeah, life is good.
Yeah.
Well, now they
Good.
know like if mom and dad don't go to work, if mom doesn't sit with clients,
Yeah.
like
we don't eat.
yeah,
We don't
Yeah.
eat.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what are you gonna sell? Which pair of basketball shoes?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You start
Exactly.
having conversations that are more meaningful than like, can I do this or can I do? It's like, hey, bro, like I can't make dinner tonight, or
Yes.
so I think that the realization that our life wasn't where we wanted it to be and that we knew we weren't going to let each other fail
Yeah.
was like
Mhm.
just seriously, like the worst case is we'll go back to corporate and we'll figure it out.
Right.
Like
Yes.
there's always a point at which you can say
Yeah.
You
that
can
wasn't-
turn around and go back. Like there's
yes.
no, to Mary's
done
point,
that.
there's
You've
no
opened that door. You
decision
know
that's
what's behind that
absolutely
door.
final, right?
Yeah.
Like you can reverse it, you can change course, you
Yeah.
can pivot. Like even within our business, as we've gone through this journey, we
Yeah.
pivot nonstop.
Yeah.
I mean, it depending what the situation is, depending what the circumstances are. So I think that's the key. Is just like I don't care what it is, whether it's your career or it's your life. Like Mary said it earlier, things change,
Yes.
and you have to have your eyes open to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you also, though, I would say you guys are both, you two are good examples of intentional life design. I used
Yeah.
that term
Oh,
earlier,
yeah.
and I said, I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people know that is a thing,
Yeah.
but being intentional about designing your life. And I think you have done that. I mean, when did that start for you where you were mapping out, hey, this is the kind of life we want to have or the life we don't want to have?
I would say when I left, after we left Morgantown, I moved to that other company for
Yeah.
about a year. And at the end of that was
Yeah.
like, this has to change.
Yeah, this isn't
Like,
what I want.
this isn't what I want,
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? How
Yeah.
are we going to move forward?
Mhm.
We knew then that, okay, if we make this change, it doesn't have to be a corporate change, or it doesn't have to be a
Right.
corporate gig, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to get my insurance license. I'm putting my 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And then for me, Mary probably was more intentional early on
Yeah.
as we moved through it,
Yeah.
because I was still in this phase of like, I don't know if you want to call it brain fog or what that corporate life took a toll on me.
Yeah.
And I needed like an adjustment period
Yeah.
of just in my mind, I thought, oh gosh, you're going to move into the life that you want, right?
Yeah.
Of design your own schedule.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you in the corporate world, I came from and you had the same schedule, right?
Right.
You were triple booked for meetings.
Yes.
My schedule didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And Mary will tell you that. I'm like, well, they want us to work through our schedule and be intentional. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
It never did for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But once I realized, okay, like if I do put a meeting on a schedule, I have to be there. It means something now.
Yes. Yes.
right?
This is a real meeting, not just
Right.
something that looks good on
Right.
paper because I have two other ones at the
Right.
same time.
And now, like, I mean, our schedule is still crazy hectic,
Yeah.
but we slide things around. We have intentional family time.
Yeah.
Never had that before.
Yeah.
Like my family time was like, hey, Mary, if I get home before 5, we could probably do this. Now it's, okay, we have a basketball game with our boys, or we have whatever the time is. It's blocked off. The boys know it's happening, and Ellie, I should say. But, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
It's so different, but there's an adjustment period to that. And you
sure.
have to like weather that too.
Yeah.
And not, there's all kinds of barriers and hurdles that pop up, but you have to be confident enough in what you're doing.
Yeah.
To once you get through that, then it's like, you see the other side of it.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's so much, you're just in leadership all day long because you're leading a business together, you're leading people, and you're also leading a household together. So
Yeah.
how do you and you like seem to like each other still in all of this. So
He spends a lot of time in the woods, if we're being very honest.
So how do you kind of I just want to hear how you do that. And are you specific about, okay, we're very clear, we set clear boundaries about what is work and what is personal, and or is it all just thrown in a pot? I mean, how do you organize that for yourselves?
Yeah, so that's really good. The first thing that we have done for each other, and we've known each other so long, we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. So we know what we're good at, we know what we're not so good at, and we also know what we love and what lights us up.
Yeah.
So those things get priority on our calendar.
Well,
right?
and can I say something about that too? We're not afraid to have that hard conversation with each other of like, hey, Mary, you're getting off track. Like,
I love that.
And I'll give you a good example.
Mary
was
might
just
not love that, but I love it.
I do it for him too. It's a checks and balance.
No, I'll give you a great example of that. She is so good about being really consistent with her schedule and adhering to all the times.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, she'll let work like keep bleeding. And when was it? 2
Last
days
night.
ago or last night? I said to her, I'm like, Mary, we're done for the day. We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
It wasn't a crisis, or it wasn't, it
Right.
was something that,
Yeah.
So-
turn it off.
right.
Yeah.
But when I have that conversation with her, she doesn't get mad at me. She doesn't,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
coming from a place of love and
Yeah.
good intention.
Love. Was that a sarcastic love? I don't know.
No, it
No,
is
I'm joking.
never sarcastic coming from me.
No, but no, we're very intentional first, and we identify, like, we have identified that there are times when our efforts don't need to be duplicate, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But there are times that one or the other of us have felt like that's not the best use of our time, but
Okay.
then we come back together on it. So I'll give you a good example, being
Yeah.
that we lead a family and a household, right?
Yeah.
So we have 3 kids who all go to school at 3 different times. So the morning stretch, it like feels like it's a whole day.
Yes.
And we're always very frustrated. Like, in all honesty, like, that is probably the most stressful part of our day, because it just feels like we can't get any traction.
Yeah.
Our oldest son, like, our kids are good. They get up, they get themselves ready, but it's like one is up at 5:30, the other one doesn't leave the house till 8:30. It's like 3 hours.
That
of-
is
3
a
hours.
long-
It's just like a
It is.
long stretch of time, and it's not
Yeah.
enough time that like you get really good. I mean, I guess this is somewhere we could work on, is like certain days maybe, or certain hour is your hour and the next hour is mine. I don't know, because it feels like it's just a lot of chaos. So I wouldn't say that's our best leadership time, but we take Ellie to daycare together, and
Oh.
I kept wanting to like cut that out. Like,
Huh.
do we both need to drive her?
Yeah, that's the duplication.
Yeah, and I'm
right?
like,
Right.
we're 2 people, we shouldn't be doing the same tasks.
Yeah.
And through some conversations with him and some conversations with other people, they said to me, you may want to understand that that's a really good time for you to connect.
Oh,
And it's like a 30-minute like huddle meeting before your day.
Yes.
I look at it as a date.
Yeah.
I think if you were to gauge like who's more
Huddle
romantic,
time,
yeah,
date.
I'm like, let's plan the day. And he's like, babe, can we let's just drive through the country and look at the deer. No, so I have a 9 and a 10.
This is so great.
Right. So we definitely like.
That's fact too.
Yeah,
That is fact.
yeah.
I love driving through the country.
He
to
does
look
his
at
best
deer.
thinking like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it makes me crazy. But so we've learned about that. But like, so
Yeah.
that has now become like, it's actually part of our day, and it's actually a good kind of, because then it also feels like a commute. So if you work from your home
Yes.
office, like
Yes.
we go, we come back, you grab
Yeah.
your second cup of coffee, and you get to work.
Yeah, there's a transition period.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing I'll say is that your workday doesn't look the same as it did in the corporate world. I have no walking to another meeting. I have no chatting with anybody in the hallways.
Yeah.
Like, so you work 6 hours. That's a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah. It
Yes.
is. That is like a
Yes.
14-hour
It is
corporate
a lot
day.
of work.
Yes.
So I can work really intentionally from 9 a.m. to 3 when our
Yes.
boys come home, and have gotten a ton done in
Right.
that time, right? So we've tried to book some time like between like 3 and 5
Mhm.
that's kind of a little looser,
Yeah.
so that we can kind of touch base with the boys. I've been trying to have dinner ready then, because
Yeah.
they all also eat lunch at different times. So like they come home
Starving.
starving.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they're just like eating. So I try to have something ready so that we can eat some dinner, or they can grab it as they need. Then we get to practices and stuff like that. And then on a few nights a week, we do run some appointments with clients. So one of us
Yeah.
will take family time, one will take appointments. And that is just kind of like how we balance.
Yeah.
But he's great with doing interviews, second interviews. I'm great with a first interview. I have the
Yeah.
recruiting process locked
Yeah, that's a
down.
huge part of our business.
Yeah, he
is
does great
recruiting.
mentoring. I'm good
Yeah.
at like onboarding, so we just kind of, I'm meeting with clients now. He's setting my appointments. He's such a good little receptionist.
Look at you. I love it.
As long as it gets me more time in the woods, I'm good, Laura.
Design your life.
Yes.
Design your life.
But I love
100%.
that because, especially if you are just running your business by yourself. So let's say like rewrite history for a moment. And Mark, you're just doing this on your own. And Mary, you're doing something else. When you are the only person that has to do all the tasks, you are not good at all of those
I did that for
tasks.
what, about 4 months maybe
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. And like what you talked about,
that's
Mary,
hard.
knowing strengths and weaknesses, right? You
Yeah.
have to be the CEO, the COO, the CIO, the CHRO, the CFO. Like you are all those things, but you're not necessarily good at all those
100%.
things. What's fascinating is, typically opposites attract. So if you think about like from a marital perspective, probably I would assume in many cases, it doesn't have to be a marital perspective, any kind of relational
Yeah.
perspective where, you're together, there's a good chance that maybe you are partnered with someone who has some strengths that are your weaknesses and vice versa. And there's a lot of efficiency in
There
that.
is. I agree. I love it because when we are duplicating things, I feel like, what's the point of us both working this?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
why are we both building the same thing if we can't essentially duplicate,
Right.
or not duplicate activity, duplicate effort,
Yeah.
duplicate outcome, right?
Yeah.
So that is important to us. And so I have seen, like, when we're intentional about that and we don't go to the same meetings we don't necessarily both need to be at, things like that.
Yeah.
We hone certain skills as well. Like, we don't all have to be a master of everything, right?
Right.
We need to be
Yeah.
aware, because
Yeah.
it is our business. Like, you can't put your head under a rock, but at the same time, like,
Yeah.
if I have a natural tendency here, great. And I have heard you talk on this podcast specifically, even, and in our past,
Mhm.
about strengthen your strengths. Like, we
Yes.
spend so much
Invest in
time.
your strengths.
We spend so much time feeling bad about things we're not naturally good at. Like, who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
Just build the strengths to be superstar strengths, like
Yeah.
superpowers. Instead of like feeling bad, find the person who
Right.
that's their superpower and it lights them up, right?
Yeah.
It's so fun. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are, but like my skill set now, I feel like went from this to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because really what we are doing is a complete 180 from what
Yes.
I was trained to do for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can learn a new skill. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like, and to me, it breathed new life in my career, because towards the end there, I was like, I just went through
It's
the
the same thing
motions.
over
It's the
and
same
over.
thing. It's so
Yeah.
repetitive. I've kind of seen what I'm going to see here. And
Mhm.
I'm grateful for all the opportunities I had.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this now gives me appreciation for that, because we did build a lot of skill set
Yes.
that directly applies, even though it's two different
Yeah, you can
fields.
still transfer
Completely.
things.
Leadership's leadership.
Yes.
So, and we see it on our greater team where I see the young leaders coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was that person
Yeah.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
They're just learning And I feel grateful of like, I've dealt with this, I've dealt with that. Now and it's, I don't know. It's just,
I see the mentor coming out in him. You said he likes to do the mentorship and the coaching.
Yeah, he loves it. And I think that's the other thing is like leadership is, and this might answer a question, so I'm going to throw it out there. But like, to me, like leadership is not just about taking people through the day-to-day, right? Like leadership is about taking them somewhere they haven't been or bringing them along with you.
Yes.
So it's influence in action, right? Like, and so takes me to one of my favorite quotes, and this is a guy who founded the company that we work with.
Okay.
And his name's Casey Watkins. And just as a perspective, he's a high school dropout.
Awesome.
And he was like, this is not what I want to do. He comes from a family of entrepreneurs, so he built business. And his big phrase, and he's from North Carolina, so a lot of it's like just simple wisdom of like generations. And his big thing is like, you can't steer a parked car. Right? So like, you got to have people, who want to come with you. You've got to find and be around people who love growth and learning and want to be more. If you're happy in the 9 to 5, that's for you. And that's amazing.
Yes. And if you're consciously choosing that and that's what you want.
But you have to lead people where they want to go.
Yes.
I think like
that's true.
That's something I learned like when younger version of me was I'm going to lead you where I want you to go.
Right. Whether you want to go there or not.
Square peg, round hole. We're going to get you there, Laura, right? Even though you're kicking and screaming the whole way.
We'll get you there. Yeah.
But as I matured in that process, you realize like even in the confines of a corporate space, the conversations started to be, okay, Laura, hey, where do you see yourself in our team?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe the conversation is, Mark, I like it here, but I want to move here eventually. Well, great. Let's put the pieces in place to get you there eventually.
Yes.
And once that started happening, that's when like, to me, everything became easy from that perspective. And leadership's not easy. Like a good leader gives themselves. It can be so exhausting.
Yes.
If you're really an honestly good leader and genuine, you give a lot of yourself too.
You're investing in
investing
it's like
in
being
people.
A parent. I
Right.
mean, that is exhausting as well. You know, you're investing in.
But it's a good exhausting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's rewarding in the end when you see that person that you took from your team and you connected them to get them wherever they want to go. And like those are the most rewarding things that I've taken out of my career. Like bar none. People to this day are like, man, I'm so grateful that you helped me get here.
Yes, and asked me. And
you
I
cared
think,
enough to ask the person.
Yes, and you're raising up something that I think is massive right now that's going on is that what you talked about when it was, you know, hey, I'm going to decide as the leader where we're going and we're all going.
Right.
5, maybe even 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, most people would say, got it.
Yep.
Right. We'll do
got it, boss.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And that's how I was brought up. That's how I was raised. You put your head down, you work hard, you do what you're told. You don't ask for anything. You just say thank you. Whatever someone gives you just say thank you. Don't negotiate. Don't ask for more. Don't ask for anything. Do not have needs.
Right.
Just say thank you. Thank you. And work a gazillion hours a day. You know? And that was the model that I think, you know, many people still subscribe to. However, I think we're all seeing a massive shift right now. And especially I think the pandemic for sure has changed a lot of people's perspectives and priorities. And they're like, no, I'm not going to go there if I don't want to go there. I'm not going to do that. I don't
It's
want
my
to do
life.
that.
I'm going to design it how I want to.
Yes.
You know, and that's, to me, that's more and more of a popular mindset.
Yeah.
If you want to say it that way, it's more and more prevalent.
Yes.
You know, I think 20 years ago, the people that said, I want to design my life are now the people that have whatever they want, you know, right? But there were very few of them.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, you're bringing up some things that I think are really challenging for leaders right now, because now instead of everyone kind of going in the same direction, whether they really wanted to or not, you've got potentially people kind of going in all sorts of different directions. I couldn't imagine
being a leader in the corporate space now.
Yeah. It's like herding cats, right? And you're kind of like, but we still all need to go here because this is the overall strategy, you know, so it does make it a little bit harder. How do you all, I know you have teams, so how do you apply that? I mean, just that learning that you've had, how do you apply that in terms of how you lead people now and using that knowledge that you have about the fact that, hey, they may want to go in different directions? You know, is it we figure out where they fit within this organization, or is it maybe they're not the right fit for the organization and they should go, you know, do that dream somewhere else? I mean, how do you reconcile
so it's
that?
an interesting, I mean, so when you're in the financial services world, it's a lot like real estate, right? Like you're a 1099 contractor, you are your own business owner essentially, right? So you have the option to do things how you want to do them, or you could maybe try a system that's working, right?
Right.
So when we are looking for those people that we want to invest in, that we want to spend time with and train, we're looking for that growth mindset. We're looking for what they want. And if what they want is to make $18 an hour, this is not the right fit. If you want this to work like a job, then you need to work a job.
Yeah.
If you're looking for some flexibility, so it's about the hiring and questioning process. It's about really getting to know them. Like I do a quick 15-minute like screening interview, right? And people are like, what are you going to learn in 15 minutes? Oh, let me tell you, right? Let me tell you what I learned.
Yeah.
I learn about attitude. I learn about energy. I learn about what drives you. You can ask 4-5 good questions and have a really good idea of this person is someone, that you want to spend some time with, because as a leader, you get to choose.
Right.
Right. And so I think a lot of times we blame other sources for not having great people to lead. But like in a lot of cases, you got to pick.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't pick well. So maybe you need to go back to your process of picking. That's one thing I will say about Mark and I is like we literally have journaled about who it is we want to build this business with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so when they don't check mark those boxes, no problem, no offense.
It's
but
okay.
But that's
It's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
Like if I talk to you and you're negative and the world's against you, it's not probably going to be a fit.
Yes.
Because this is hard. I mean, it's a struggle. So it's a struggle if you're positive.
Right.
So
building a business is not easy. I don't care
No.
if you're selling widgets. I don't care if
anything.
you're doing financial services.
Yeah.
Like there's a period there where you're structuring it.
Yes.
You're hiring employees,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
And that's a big piece of it.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
No.
but one of our mentors told us, like, listen, you're actually going to be leading people who you can only lead people that are equal to you. Like, unless you can keep growing your skill set and your leadership capability, you won't be able to build a team of better people than you. Like, you'll be able to track them. You'll be able to maybe have some conversations. But for the long haul, if you're not constantly striving to be the best, a better leader, a more connected leader, a more empathetic leader, a more vulnerable with your top performer, they're going to outgrow you.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of where we are, is like we know who we want to work with.
Yes.
And we've been super fortunate to find a solid handful of those people who want to lock arms and who have big dreams and who show up day in and day out, because it's
put it in.
they don't have to.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
they could, not tomorrow, could go away.
Yeah.
But like, I think that kind of like an agreement and that like their belief that we're going to be there and show up for them helps them. But I definitely think it's in that process of like finding who you want to be with. Who do you want to work with? And
I think
Mark said for years, like he interviewed so many people that he would either be like, that's not the person, or he'd be like, God, I really want to hire that person. And for some reason he couldn't pick, right? So when we're in this seat, those conversations, like we talked with a person on the way down here, did an interview, and I was just like, and we hung up the phone, and Marcus, he's awesome. And I'm like, I know, right? Like the conversations we get to have with people, like
it's
just
fun.
truly
It's fun to
real genuine.
Yeah. And like that growth, like when I think back early on, and I know early on when you joined the business especially, like Laura, my head would hurt. Like, and it was expansion. Right?
Mind blown all day long, right?
I like at the end of the day, and I would say to Mary, all right, there's a growth spurt. Like I feel my head.
I love that concept. Yeah.
Like
but you guys know the science. I mean, literally, you are building like neural pathways. And
there's a
You're,
point
like,
at which you
building that
can't do
muscle.
anything else, right?
And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm just gonna go like hang out and relax,
space out for a little while.
Yeah, but it's incredible when you're willing to open yourself up and when you're willing to keep working on yourself.
Yes.
You know, and it'll never end. I can't ever see a space where we quit. doing that.
Yeah.
Like it just never ends. You want to keep learning. You want to keep being a better person. You know, and
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so interesting because I was in a meeting and it was all business owners and they were asking us, is your intention, long-term intention with your business to sell it or, to keep it as a legacy, and I'm like, oh, the thought of selling my business or not doing my business literally has never even crossed my mind of like, oh, that's not something that I'm interested in doing.
That used to be my thought of like, all right, at a certain
Spin
age,
it up.
55, 60 years old, whatever, I'm going to retire and I'm just going to kick back.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with that is when you just kick back, you quit growing.
You stop growing.
Yeah.
You
and stop contributing.
You stop contributing.
Yeah.
And then your life starts losing its meaning.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, funny
and
you
we're
say
put here
that.
to do great things.
Yes. It's really funny you say that. You'll appreciate this because I took a class I think it was in my MBA program where we had to assess financial reports for different companies. We would read through their financial reports. It was a financial analysis course. And our professor really likened humans to stocks and value. And how value is assigned and, is this stock valuable? Is it contributing? And really used the analogy for humans as well and talked about even just the aging process. It was a fascinating conversation of, what happens to people when they are not contributing anymore and when they don't feel value anymore, regardless of age. But, and the same thing of, it's easier to think about from a stock perspective. That's a little bit more, less, woo-woo sounding. But it was a really interesting concept of, what does happen when you feel like you're no longer contributing or you're no longer of value.
Just kind of wither away. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, double the guests equals double the fun. And we definitely don't have enough time for one episode. So please return for part 2 next week with Mark and Mary Cholock.